Hey guys, this is Alex.
And this is Drew.
And today on the Two Man Comic Book Club podcast, we're going to be taking a look at DC's newest character on the block, Naomi. Let's go.
Yeah.
Drew. Something's different.
Yeah. I can see you, and I can see you.
And I can see you. And we can see you. For those that are just listening, which why wouldn't you be, right?
Yeah.
If you're here and you're just listening, this is Drew and I's first ever jump into a video podcast for the Two Man Comic Book Club.
Yeah.
So,
and wouldn't you know it, we do it in the middle of a quarantine, and I haven't been to a barber since February. It is currently, September?
Yes. Remember some day of September.
3rd or 4th?
3rd or 4th. Yeah, we're in early September.
So yeah, I apologize to everyone for my scruff. I didn't think to trim my beard or my hair because I always have a mask on. So, but now you can see me, so I apologize.
Yeah. So this is an exciting time for this whole thing. First off, like you mentioned, to try this was pretty ridiculous. I'm trying to figure out, I guess there's not going to be a ton of times where we need to just look straight into the camera.
I did it earlier for a comedic moment.
Right.
Who knows if it made it in,
Yeah,
but
we'll see what future Alex chops into the video.
Yeah, this is all new. What spurred this is we've always talked about video, using video, and I bought a camera the other day because I just felt like being able to document like hikes and stuff that I go on. And then I started talking to Alex, and I was like, what would we need beyond your camera? Alex has a really fancy one, and mine that I got to do a podcast. And he was like, a video. And he's like, I think we could do it, So we've got 3 cameras set up, a couple lights, and the same audio setup mostly. Since we've been remote, things have changed a little bit. So I'm sorry if any audio things sound strange. When I was packing everything up, I forgot to pack the second pop filter. So we have Alex's mic set up a little bit different. So if you are listening and not watching, hopefully the audio comes out to the level you've expected. If you are watching and you want to see what's going on, go search YouTube for Two Man Comic Book Club. I have no idea what the link would be at this point because we haven't even made a YouTube channel.
We'll put it in the description.
Yeah, somewhere. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, we invite you to come watch it. And then I was thinking the other day, we keep asking people to reach out on Twitter or email or whatever, Instagram. But maybe it's going to be a little bit easier if you are watching on YouTube to just scroll down to the comment section and say, hey, I've been watching, I enjoy it. We've had a year worth of episodes out now, and this will be the first one video form.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll say hey and let us know if there's something we've done that you really liked and you've just been looking for a way to tell us about it.
Yeah, we want to make sure, this is obviously going to be growing and evolving, and as with most things, the first time you do something is rarely like nailed it, so it would have been hilarious if we should have set up like a hyperlapse of us setting up this thing.
Yeah, that would have been
buffoonery.
Humbling.
Yeah. It took some time to get this thing set up.
Just for the record, what time is it now?
It is, let me look, 1:10 p.m.
I swear, just 3 seconds ago, you said it was 12:40 when we thought we were about to hit record.
Yeah, about 30 minutes ago.
And I think we actually started setting up at like 10:30.
Yeah, we've been at this for hours and hours and hours. Now, there was a Poor John's break in there for us to fill our tummies. But, we basically were in my office. We redid some stuff. Yeah. Nothing looks how it normally does. Yeah. But that's okay. We have enough stuff to make it happen. If you get on our Twitter, I just, right before we started, posted a picture of us near setup. And you'll notice that my camera is on top of a kitchen stool, on top of my gimbal box, on top of a comic book long box, on top of a tiny little headphone box, just to get a good angle. So, yes, I have this ridiculously awesome camera with no tripod.
Yep. And I bought a tripod. It was just a cheap one when I got my camera because I wanted to take like fancy pictures of the moon and the stars. And I had a couple little tiny tripods that I planned to bring, but they're sitting right by the pop filter that is currently at my house. So
yeah, and then we're recording our wide shot that I'll put up screen right now on my iPhone sitting on a music stand.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's
but
just
hey,
always in my truck.
That's a lesson for anybody that wants to get out there and record this. Even if we didn't have our cameras, which I have a Sony A7 III, Drew has a Panasonic G7, they don't suck. They're solid cameras, but we could do this with 3 cell phones.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you are interested in creating this stuff, not that this is a creative podcast, but it's doable. Like all you got to have is the want. So
and you don't need to have the fancy, condenser mics.
No.
And and if you are watching us, you see these gigantic boom arms. I think that's going to be one of the first things we adjust to just one that sits on the table.
Yeah.
So because you should have seen us trying to wrangle these cables and these boom arms. We just kept bumping into them and screaming. So, but yeah, you could do it with a phone. If you have a room that is relatively quiet, the mic on these phones are getting better and better and better. So, yeah.
Yep. Also, if you're interested in seeing some like behind the scenes, maybe we do like an Instagram story or on Facebook or something, I don't know, Facebook Live of like how we set this up, I'd be down to like do something, answer some questions if people are curious. We've had people ask us before. So, let us know if you're interested in seeing something like that. I thought about this before, and I think that we should add our social media accounts now.
Okay.
And at the end.
Okay.
Just in case there's some people might not make it to the end and it may be a legitimate reason. And they may always wonder how 45 minutes in they still don't know how to reach us. So where can they find us on social media?
We are on Twitter at 2Man Comic Book. That's with the number 2. Instagram and Facebook, 2Man Comic Book Club. Once again, with the number 2. And we've got a blog where we post these things, and I guess we'll post this as a video link there too. 2mancomicbookclub.blogspot.com. Yeah. Where can they find you, Alex?
They can find me on all social media accounts at Alex Wayne Miller. Wayne is Wayne, just like my boy Bruce Wayne, Batman here. And where about you?
You can find me on Twitter, where I am most active, at Drew Morris Comp, COMP. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, Drew Morris Composer, because that's what I do for a living. I write music.
Yes, you do. Cool. So yeah, we're doing this video now. It's a little more work. We're new to it, but I think it's going to be cool. We've had enough people reach out to us and go, hey, do you guys have a video of this? Because I would totally watch. And so we're doing it. Here we go. Expect changes.
Yeah.
Just because we're going to figure out some stuff. I'm sure even when we stop recording here, we'll go, all right, next time let's do this thing differently.
And for the sake of, like normally we just hit record and go. But the camera that I bought happens to have a 30-minute time limit when you're recording in 4K. So we're going to be stopping every once in a while, which, I mean, you're used to our breaks on the podcast, but sometimes the breaks take an hour to get to. So in this case, they'll be
a little more forced. Yeah. No, not forced, but they'll be more purposeful.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's jump into what you're actually here for.
Yeah.
This week on the 2Man Comic Book Club podcast, we are covering DC Comics' new character, Naomi. Now, you may think that sounds like a very normal name, and you are not wrong, I guess. Actually, let me ask, do you know anybody named Naomi?
I mean, I know Naomi Judd of the Judds. I don't know. Oh, yeah. I met Winona. Yeah.
Very cool.
When I grew up and I was listening to country. I saw a bunch of country acts on stage, but I got to see the Judds farewell tour whenever the Judds left. And then I saw Winona and I went backstage and got a picture with her. That was pretty cool.
Very cool.
But yeah, Naomi.
I know one. She went to high school with me. I have no idea where she lives now. Naomi, if you're listening, what's up? Anyway, DC Comics Naomi. This was an exciting book when it came out, but not for a reason like if you're shopping for comics or just looking for something. I personally don't know that if I knew nothing about it but just saw a title that said Naomi, that I would be particularly taken in by it. It doesn't look to be. It's not like reading, Avengers Civil War.
I mean, the only reason I initially picked it up is because some podcast I was listening to at the time was like, hey, it's a pretty good read. You should pick it up. And I didn't because the comic shop I normally go to, I just couldn't find a copy of it there. But when it popped out on DC Universe
Right.
5-6 months ago, I don't know, I was like, yes, I can't wait. And I literally waited. I would check every Wednesday, like, is this the week that another one drops? So, because it was it was different.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not, like you said, it's not Avengers Civil War.
I heard a bunch of buzz about it, and I'm in comics Twitter enough to where I see the new stuff coming out, and somehow it evaded me of who the creative team was, because I was like, who's creating all this buzz on DC Comics about a book called Naomi? How does something like that just immediately jump through the gate, sprinting with hype?
Yeah.
And then I looked it up, and of course, it's our boy Brian Michael Bendis, one of the most prolific writers in comic book history, in my opinion. I mean, at least for modern comics, especially. He's incredible. While we're on the subject, let's get to the rest of the creative team, which we have had a discussion recently. We're going to do a much better job of actually mentioning the full creative team behind these books, because they're comic books. They're not just books. And to be honest, I was on comic book Twitter again, and I saw one of the big name writers in the game basically say that there's a lot of people that might not take you that seriously if you're only talking about the comic book writer. And we agree with him, because comic books have art, they have coloring, they have pencils, they have a lot more than just the writers. So we're going to do better about listing that information, making sure the full team is recognized for their creative work, because that matters.
I mean, Alex and I are both in the creative fields.
Yeah.
So like, I think about that and like, okay, yeah, whenever I've worked really hard to write a piece of music, I mean, it's not like I want people bowing down to me, but
you want people to know what you did.
It's just like, yes, I was involved with that. I worked really hard. And same thing with, if I'm writing a marching show, I've written shows and had Alex help with, beats and stuff like that. And I want to make sure that his name's up there just like mine.
For sure.
So yeah, it makes sense. And comic books are so visual.
Right.
It wouldn't be the same without the artists.
Right. And the color changes too. Like a lot of people don't know, like somebody may draw an entire comic book and have literally no input on what colors are used or how the letters are portrayed in it. It's different people doing their own unique thing, bringing their own vibe to the book. So the creative team behind Naomi is Brian Michael Bendis and David F. Walker for the writers. Jamal Campbell did the art, or he is the artist, and he did the cover for this book. I don't know for the rest of them. A lot of the main artists will do the number one issue, and then they'll let some variant issues come out. Josh Reed is the letterer. Jessica Chen is the associate editor. Mike Cotton and Andy Curry are editors. Brian Cunningham and Mark Doyle are group editors. I need to find out the difference between associate editor, and group editor.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. And then just for the record, this character, Naomi, was created by Brian Michael Bendis, David Walker, and Jamal Campbell. Did I say James Campbell earlier? I might have. It's Jamal Campbell. Yeah, so the two writers and the artist created the character.
And in this specific comic, we got some cameos of Superman, and that's mentioned, made by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster back in the 30s, and allowed for through an arrangement with the Siegel family. Yeah. I wonder how often the Siegel family gets bothered, being like, "Hey, we want to use Superman," and how many times they say yes and how many times they say no.
I don't know. They probably say yes and then collect the fat paycheck.
Yeah,
really often.
Kudos.
Yeah, I would. Cool. So let's jump right into this book. How are we doing on time? Cool. We got about 15 minutes till we got to take a break, so we'll jump right in. Also, if you're watching this, if you're listening right now. Something that might entice you to go back later and check this out is I'm going to do my best to edit in some of the panels that we're talking about on the screen while we're watching it. So be a little more dynamic if you don't have access to the comic books or to the subscription services that we use to watch these or read these rather. So for instance, right now we're using DC Universe. You can check out the panels that we're talking about, and it's really going to be a little bit more dynamic, I think, of an experience.
Maybe it'll whet your whistle a little bit and make you want to go buy the comic or get the service so that you can really start following along.
Yes. Cool. So today we're going to have a goal of getting through at least the first two. I have a theory we're going to get through all the first three issues. The first two kind of move really quick, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So we're going to jump right in. We'll throw some of these panels up here as we get going. And this is Naomi #1 by Bendis, Walker, and Campbell.
So, yeah. I love the very first page that we open up to.
Mm-hmm.
For one, I mean, if you've listened to, if this is not your first episode, which if you're finding us on YouTube, it is, welcome. If you've listened to the past almost 40 episodes that we've put out, you've probably heard me talk about Superman.
Yep.
I'm a sucker for Superman.
He's your boy.
And I mean, he's always been my favorite, and I think he always will. I just love his everything, you know, his wholesomeness. And some of my favorite things about Superman are whenever we see him not even being, you know, super, just being a human, well, a Kryptonian, but
being a good person.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so the very first frame, we see Naomi opening up her locker, and there's these pages of Superman. I don't know if you're like back whenever I was in school and I had a locker.
Mm-hmm.
I had pictures hung up there and everything. I probably even had one of Superman. I don't know. But I love it because right from the beginning, I mean, let me pedal back. If you look at the cover of this, it has Naomi, and she's like, has this web of pictures, and you're just like, okay, so she's like a detective trying to piece things together.
Right. She's a very curious person.
Yeah.
We were led to believe by that art in the beginning.
And then the very first page, she has these like news clippings and pictures, and one of them, it's like a picture of Superman, and the next one is a picture of Clark Kent, and then it says Superman, Clark Kent, ? So like, boom, first page, she's put it together.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not we ever find out about that, anything beyond that, you know, you'll have to keep reading to find out. But I was just like, wow, okay. So there's something about this girl. And also, apparently she really digs Superman.
Now, is it, I don't know this, so this is where I'm referring to your DC know-how more than mine. Does the DC proper, is it Earth 1? Earth 1 is the main continuity,
I've heard different things. Like, I've always thought it was.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if you're a DC aficionado, because I've never bothered to really keep track of that, honestly, because I'm just like, I like all the stories, you know, so I haven't bothered to keep up.
If you know and you're listening or watching the main DC continuity, let us know in the comments section or tweet at us. Is it common knowledge that Clark Kent and Superman are the same person, or is it still it's his secret identity?
I say no.
I'm sure it's been out before,
Yes,
and
it
maybe
has.
retconned or some memory loss or something.
I think that that was supposed to be a big thing that happened recently, like maybe after this comic happened. But I thought I remembered hearing there was going to be a big bombshell. The world was going to know that Clark Kent was Superman. But for the most part, like since the 30s, the 99% of the time, nobody knew who he was, like other than Lois or close people would not know. So the fact that she put that together, you know, it's significant in my opinion,
right?
Because people don't know.
It's a cool concept, and we'll get back into the book in a second. But I remember when Peter Parker, or at least in my mind, this is, if it wasn't the first time, it was definitely one of the more iconic times when he was outed as Spider-Man. It was in the Civil War series when he was recruited by Tony Stark to be on his side, and it was like this giant gesture of like, oh, they got Peter Parker, they got Spider-Man to take off the mask and be like, I believe in this thing we're doing here. I believe my identity should be known. And it was such this like, you know, what an advocate for the activity. But it ended up being like a mega event. Like, holy crap, Peter Parker just took off his mask. So anyway, getting into that, she's picking up clues that at least Clark Kent and Superman, they kind of favor each other, at least in her mind. I feel like this is an important thing, and I think we've talked about this in the past on other episodes. Naomi is black, and we've praised Brian Michael Bendis in the past for making sure to have inclusion for characters in comic books, and he's doing it again here with another awesome character. So it's just something I always like. I'll preach it for the rest of my days. Representation is important and it matters. And right now it's a little lopsided. And for every character we get that kind of evens that out, I'm here for it. So anyway, jumping forward, Drew, do you want to keep going with these panels?
Yeah, so after we see the page with Naomi by her locker, you have this interesting page with like 12 different teenagers, obviously, and they're all just talking about something crazy that happened.
Right.
You know, like, I was right there. I dropped my phone. It was amazing. That stuff never happens here. And and you're just like,
It almost was like talking heads, like they were all interviewed almost.
yeah.
They're not all in a room together discussing it. You know, like it's almost like they're being interviewed.
And somebody's like, yeah, there was a red streak in the sky. And having just seen Superman and the thing, you're like, okay, that must be it. And
right.
then you turn the page and there's a giant screen, fast action, like all those motion lines and Superman and Mongol fighting, and
yes.
And it's just, okay. So
I was going to ask you, I didn't know that was Mongol. It's just showing my
I'm
DC
90%
stuff.
sure it was.
I bet you're right.
Just the colors make me think that.
What's his deal? I mean, if you had like 10 seconds, is he like just super strong and bad guy kind of thing, or
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just curious. Yeah.
Sorry. I meant to look it up. Whenever I was going through and thinking about all this, I was like, okay, yeah. There's a few interesting things in later books, and I kind of Googled them as I was rereading. I should have looked up Mongol, and I didn't.
Just for continuity, will you write down for me at our break to look up just 10 seconds of Mongol? And I'm going to just bring it up just so, because it's not necessarily important to this comic, and you'll find out quickly why. But just to learn for my own self, I want to know, and then I'll spread the knowledge.
Cool.
Anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, so they're just fighting through this town, you're assuming. And I think it might be important to say what she's saying.
Yeah, and this is a small town.
Yeah, a small town in the Pacific Northwest. And the narration just says, it only lasted 17 whole seconds.
Right.
And then it pans to the next page is the same place that this fight happened, but there's wreckage everywhere. People are standing around talking about it, I can't believe it. This all happened. And Naomi's like, I missed it. I can't believe that this is, because nothing ever happens like that here.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah, I equate this. I had like a moment where I was like, I know what she's feeling here. This town reminded me of Little Berryville, which is where I was born and raised, and Drew taught and lived for many years. Nothing ever happened there. Still nothing ever happens there. And I remember when I was, I would have been 11 years old, at our Walmart, Ken Griffey Jr. was going to be there signing autographs that day.
Wow.
For whatever reason in Berryville, Arkansas, America. Ken Griffey Jr. Brandon was a huge Ken Griffey fan. I was not like a major fan, but I knew who Ken Griffey Jr. was. So he was going to be there, and we were going to get out of school early to go there. Our mom was going to pick us up. And unfortunately, the day and the reason I remember I was 11, this is going to make some of our viewers feel old, by the way. The date was September 11th, 2001.
Wow.
So his flight got grounded the day he was supposed to come in here for obvious reasons. And not only did he not show up, but the town, I guess something happened in there, it was reacting, the people were, it was like traffic was standstill through the whole town because they were trying to get gas because everybody thought we were going to war.
I remember that.
Huge thing. Anyway, we can get into that for another time. But I always remember like Ken Griffey Jr. was going to be in town until 9/11 happened, and then it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Anyway, that just reminded me of this moment because it did feel like something I missed. Like she's this art like shows this like great battle, but also it was just so quick, and then they're gone. And you're right, this wreckage
somehow,
is here.
I feel the same way. This is much less significant. I've never seen a school fight. As a teacher, as a student,
That's
I
amazing.
never once witnessed one.
I haven't seen a ton, but
I would always just hear people talking about it. And then
Right.
when I was a teacher, I was above it all. I couldn't be interested, but I was.
Yeah.
So you'd have to ask those leading questions.
Right.
Like, who was it? When it happened? The closest I saw was whenever, oh, I shouldn't go into it. Anyway, there was an accident in the band room that led to somebody getting popped in the nose and bleeding all over the place.
Right.
But I didn't actually see that either. I just saw the aftermath. But yeah, so I can sympathize a little bit too, because she's like, I've been wanting to see Superman. I don't understand it.
Yeah, even if he wrecked our town, I'd still want to see Superman run through and punch Mongol in the face and then throw him miles away.
I mean, it's
fly off.
It's the same. He's a celebrity, but not just a celebrity. He's a hero. So
right.
But yeah, and then you turn the page and we see it. There's even more. Like she is more of that detective type thing. She's looking around, trying to figure out information. If she finds a little snippet on online that one of her friends posted, like 5 seconds of a red blur.
Right.
And she's looking, and then, 0 results. And she was like, has Superman or any sort of superhero activity ever happened in, I think it's Port Oswego, maybe?
I thought I was always reading
Oregon,
Oswego.
something like that. And there's like, yeah, nothing's ever here. And then you find out, oh, she was actually scrolling through this while she's supposed to be working.
Right.
and then her friend texts, he's back. He's here with the Superman sign. And she bolts out, and we get to see this beautiful shot of Superman just flying there, carrying like a fire truck or something.
Yeah. I think it's a good moment. I'll throw this up on the screen if you're watching. Jamal Campbell's art here. I really do like his art style. It's just cool, man.
It feels, I don't know, it's just artistic. He almost looks like he could be a stained glass window.
Yeah, there's some good lines. The color palette's also really good. It's very pleasing to look at.
Yeah. And Naomi runs in and just barely catches it at the end. And he basically, like, what happened? Oh, he came in asking, because I kind of glossed over it in the previous one. The people were talking, it'd be nice if he came back and cleaned up after making this mess. And he does. Which
is always the argument.
Yeah. He does come back, ask, can I do anything? And he moves a few of the big heavy things around to help. And then he's gone. And she's like, God, I missed it again. And, and she's just heartbroken.
Right.
And then the very next thing, all of a sudden she's in some house, and we realize it's like a counselor of some sort.
Right.
And they're talking about she was just like, I missed it. I don't understand. And she was like, you sympathize with him. It's something we call the superhero or the Superman complex.
Right.
And she was like, I'm not obsessed with him. She's like, no, it's more that he was adopted. You were adopted.
Right.
He was accepted. And you feel connected to that. So it's a very common thing. And they go on and on about that for a little while. She's like, I don't want to be Superman. But it's a significant thing. And you kind of sit there and you're thinking, okay, I've never really thought about that, because I don't live in the world with Superman.
Right.
I'm not adopted, but I can see where she's coming from.
Right.
I mean, this is the first time in the book we learn that she's adopted.
Right. So moving to the next panel, this is my first, I don't want to call this a complaint, because I do think there's some creative stuff going on here, but this is the panel where there's like 5 layered sections, and I'll throw this on screen right here, but it just got a little busy for me. I just felt myself having to zoom in to like really follow what was going on here. I like the idea. It also shows some cool like progression movement for the characters. There's nothing like major happening here. Like all you really need to know is like the kids are out on this lake, skipping rocks, hanging out, just doing what high school kids do, I guess. And they are discussing what's been going on. And then like after listening to them talk, Naomi's kind of off to the side, still like researching, like, is that really the first time that anything major has happened here? You know, like what's going on here?
It's almost like the whole, all the kids, and then we're going to turn the page. I'm just going to jump ahead because it's kind of related. It's like the entire town doesn't believe that anything ever happened. And anybody who says that any superhero things have ever happened, it's just like, oh, that's a lie. It's like an urban legend. Somebody's like, oh yeah, something happened a while back.
Right.
And that's when Naomi's like, when?
Right. Like,
when did this happen?
Something happened before Superman.
Yeah. And she goes and asks all the adults, and everybody's just like,
they're just blowing her off.
Nothing happened. Yeah. Nothing's ever happened. And it's just an interesting panel to show of the town. Mm-hmm. Kind of looks like, oh, maybe it's kind of a Portland type place. Looks like a lot of variety of humans.
Yeah. You can tell she's kind of looking around, like trying to see like who in the heck has been here long enough and who that will actually shoot me straight.
Get a straight answer from. And then she sees this behemoth of a guy.
Yes, he's huge.
And it kind of shows he's got these tattoos, he's bald, crazy eyes.
That's what I'm trying to look like.
Yeah. And then her friend Annabelle walks up and she's like, oh, maybe Dee knows something. And so we're assuming that's this guy's name.
Right.
And, so she's going to go and ask. And once again, Annabelle's like, nothing happened. It's an urban legend.
And she's like, my mom said nothing happened, and my mom doesn't lie, which is hilarious.
Yeah. So eventually they're like, yeah, we'll meet up later. Say you're going to come and have a sleepover. And Naomi brushes her off and goes to talk to Dee. And,
I just want to point out, this was a hilarious moment to me. when she was like saying, my mom said nothing happened, and her justification for that was, mom said that if a superhero showed up here 20 years ago, she would have run off with him.
Oh.
She said, Booster Gold, Blue Devil, you name it. Her words. Like, sounds like her mom was like, honey, trust me.
Yeah.
If anybody even close to that came around here, I'd be gone with them, and they'd be your stepfather, which is just some good comedic relief for me.
Yeah, that's funny. And she finally does get into to talk to Dee, and Naomi's like, "Did you see that Superman thing?" And he was just like, "I did. Almost took out my garage, basically."
Mm-hmm.
And Dee's kind of like, "How can I help you?" And Naomi just comes in. She's like, "Yeah, do you know anything about this thing that happened?" And he just kind of, trying to slough her off. And he's like, "Yeah, I do. I know a little bit about it, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Were you there?" And he's like, "Not exactly."
Mm-hmm.
And what happened, and you can tell he's just trying to backpedal. He's like, "I don't want to get in other people's business."
Yeah.
And finally, it's just like the conversation stops, and Naomi's walking out and gets angry. And just as she's about to leave, he's like, "It was March 14th.
17 years ago.
And she was like, "What?" She's like, that's the day I was adopted." And then last thing of the book, Dee just says, "I know."
Boom. Close the book.
Yeah.
Issue 1's over. Which, first off, you might think like, okay, nothing really happened in that issue. But, I mean...
It was billed, We had to meet the girl.
We got to think about like the fact that something crazy did happen. Imagine if you're walking downtown, wherever your downtown is, and Superman comes down and just he's not creating havoc, but he's fighting a bad guy. And I mean, it'd be a major event if that happened. And then you find out the only other time, well, for what you know from this guy that you don't really know, D, something like this has happened before, and it happened on the day you were adopted, and you don't know anything else or who this guy is. And not only the context of he knows it was the day you were born, like, who is this guy? What
is going on?
What's going on here?
From an adopted girl,
right?
Doesn't know her parents.
So now
I feel like it's important to take a sidestep real quick.
Go ahead.
And ask you this. Do you remember Dee, the custodian in Berryville?
I do.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We would have to move, after percussion class, we would have to move all of the chairs so that Dee could vacuum. And then we would move the chairs back out.
Right.
I was just making notes about Dee, and I was like, "Oh, remember Dee?" And I had to ask you.
That is hilarious.
That was the old building. All right, yeah. It's very important and relevant to the to the Naomi mythos.
Yeah, so we'll jump right in. We'll see how we're doing on time, but I think we'll probably... Issue 2 moves pretty quickly, so we can get through. Issue 2 picks back up, just for the record, same creative team, so everything looks really familiar.
There's one difference.
Is there?
Yeah.
Correct me, because I need to know.
Where was it? Did I pass it? I took a note of it somewhere, and I guess I lost it. It was like the letterer was different.
Oh, swiping through this is exhausting. Where do they do it at?
Put the thinking music. It's at the very end. In this one, Carlos M. Mangual was the letterer. I think everybody. I think everybody else is the same.
Okay, cool. Positive. So different letterer, which matters. That changes. You wouldn't think like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing as idea of like changing a font. It can drastically change how something looks, and in relation to that, how it
was. Brian Cunningham the group editor in the last one as well, or was that different?
I believe so.
Okay.
We'll mention it just in case.
Yeah, I thought I remembered everything else is the same.
Yeah, cool. So mostly the same creative team, specifically like the artists and everything, but it's all important. So I just wanted to get that in there. But we jump right into the exact same moment. So issue 2 picks up. It's not like 10 weeks later or something like that. And Naomi's sitting there staring at Dee, and she's like, "What does that mean, Dee? Please come on. I came here to like figure out when something hit Port Oswego last.
Yeah.
Gotta know what's going on." He's just kind of like, for somebody that's so like imposing and powerful looking, like he looks like a villain of some sort.
Yeah.
But he's like still like the art, Campbell, I guess, is who drew this. So he did such a good job of like making him look, I don't even know what the word is, sensible. Like he cares. Like he looks like he has a soft heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's important here because, when you're trying to figure out who is this person in relation to this adopted girl, I think it's a creative choice to maybe make you wonder, like, is this her father?
Yeah.
Is this, and I think that's a question that's asked later in this book, but, or at least is this somebody that's related to her? Or is this a scenario where somebody that knew her parents is stuck around to be like a guardian from afar? We don't know any of that yet. I'm just speculating based off of, these are some of the thoughts that I had when I was first reading it. But Naomi's talking, she's like, Dee, you're, no offense, the town mechanic. We've never actually spoken. How do you even know the day I was adopted? And he starts walking towards her, and then you see him standing for the first time as this imposing giant. And he walks up to her. He's ignoring all her questions. He puts his massive meat hook of a hand on her head and like throws her out of his garage.
Literally.
Yeah, literally onto the street, slams his gate down, and she's like banging on it, trying to get back in there. And then you hear a motorcycle start off in the distance, and she runs around the side and she sees him hauling butt, getting out of there, riding his motorcycle. And she's just like, what just happened? And she looks down and she's got a text from her mom that says dinner in 10. And she kind of looks off.
Yeah.
And next panel,
We're home.
We're at home for dinner.
And it looks like, the typical, I never really had dinners like this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, whatever. But
yeah, me either.
It was like the typical teen dinner that you have where the parents are talking 90 miles an hour about random stuff.
Right.
Meanwhile, the kid doesn't care. And they're just saying random things. And then out of nowhere, she's just like, how did Dee know that I was adopted? Or something like that. And they're like, conversation stops. What now?
Mm-hmm. There was some creative paneling done here. They visually surmise what Drew just described. Like, you don't see either parent and panel. The panels are off to the left and the right, respectively, but you see it kind of revolve around Naomi the entire time as it, like, the conversation is, the bubbles are floating around her. It's just a cool creative work.
Yeah, and she's just trying to get info from him, like, did you hear about the superhero thing? Blah, blah, blah. What's going on? Did you know that this happened on the day of my birth, or the day of my adoption? And it's just, you can tell that the parents are just sidestepping.
Right. Which is kind of a reoccurring thing that she's having to deal with, everybody kind of brushing her off. Yeah,
and then finally it comes down like, look, we wish we knew more. We didn't know anything about your parents. We don't know who they were. It was a closed adoption.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
And she asked at one point, she says, is Dee my biological father? And that's like the record scratching moment in the scene. And the dad's like, oh, no, baby, no, wow. That's a bit of a leap. And that's a huge leap. And, they finally, like, as Drew said, kind of like really put it down, like, listen, sweetie, it was a closed adoption. You know that. And what's important is you're here today, you're healthy, and we loved you, and we're happy little family.
Mm-hmm.
And
then, kind of ends. And then the next page you see is this tons of superheroes, fighting. And you're just
stark contrast. You're like, what are we at
What
now?
is this? What is this?
I got here and went back to make sure I didn't somehow swipe 30 pages ahead, because I was like...
Because sometimes DC Universe does that. Sometimes it's just like a page gets out of order.
Yeah, we were commenting on that earlier. Just 10 seconds to say, and you're comparing Marvel Unlimited and DC as far as just usability. DC still has some bugs to work out, because like you'll swipe a page and it feels like you're in a different comic, and you'll just be like, oh, I just swiped 10 pages ahead for no reason at all.
But in this case, it is just a random thing. But we find out that it's because Naomi's doing some research online, and she found some video of Superman fighting.
Do you know any of these villains? So first off, it's Superman lightninging through this crowd of villains, and he's absolutely doing what Superman does and kicking butt. So like,
the only one that I think I might recognize is Captain Boomerang.
Yeah, I recognize him.
I really
Some
don't know anybody
dude's
else.
Like skating around on what looks like ice with an ice gun.
Oh,
shooting.
yeah, that's Captain Cold.
Okay, Captain Cold. He's punching some guy. Who has the cards?
I don't know. I should know, but I don't remember.
I don't know. If Captain Boomerang's out here, it makes it seem like there's some Suicide Squad looking guys, and those are all D tier like villains or C.
Fighting somebody that kind of looks like Odin.
Yeah,
but
let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 villains to my eye, and Superman's taking them all out. So it makes me think they're not a bunch of dark side level characters, that he's not struggling. He's like, Justice League, I'll go take care of this.
Yeah. But we do kind of find out a little bit later, like, she's just talking with Annabelle, like Skyping. Annabelle's sitting there practicing her cello or whatever. And somebody says something about, what did she say? She said, that's what it was. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. She's just asking about D,
Right.
Annabelle talked to her mom about him. She's like, I heard he was in somewhere called Iron Heights. And if you ever watch any Arrowverse things or whatever, you would know. I mean, they talk about it in just a second, but Iron Heights is a prison for supervillains.
Right. I didn't know that because I'd only heard of Arkham Asylum before, which I guess is more Batman contained, but it does bleed down to the more further DC proper.
Yeah. And Naomi's like, what? That's a prison for supervillains. And Annabelle's like, oh, I thought it sounded like a nice suburb in Detroit.
Right.
So.
Which it could be.
And then she's like, wait a minute, I just saw Superman fighting a bunch of people in Iron Heights.
Right.
She was just watching the video, and that must be what we had just seen. Anyway, so she's just kind of finishes her talk, and then we have another panel, a lot like that, but this is all kinds of crazy looking things that we've never seen. They almost look like dragons. And
this looks otherworldly, like alien mixed with dragons mixed with the future.
Yeah. But then we realize it cuts to Naomi seemingly waking up. So maybe Naomi was dreaming about this. I don't remember if they ever actually say for real, but yeah, she's just like, I'm not sleeping. And she wakes up, tosses on her shoes, grabs her skateboard, grabs a flashlight, and goes.
Yeah.
Out in the night.
Tell me what your interpretation of this is. I'm going to put this on screen. She says, well, funny thing, ever since Superman flew by, every time I close my eyes, I see that. Is that like a fourth wall break? Or who is she talking to?
Yeah, I guess.
Because she's laying in bed, the lights are off. It's obviously nighttime, it's dark. And we don't really see, and it just looks like if I'm looking at the panel straight on, it looks like she's looking at me.
I mean, it could also just be...
She's just talking to herself?
I find myself talking to myself.
Right.
A lot more than is probably healthy.
I guess that's what I see now when I wake up or when I'm sleeping.
But the way that they framed it does seem like she's talking to somebody.
Yeah. So I guess it's just like this image that's every time she goes to sleep, she's seeing this thing. And it's pretty wild.
Spoiler, there is significance.
Yes.
A bit later. So.
Yeah, she gets up and she puts on all her stuff and she leaves Drew.
Yeah, and she's just skateboarding through town. And luckily, she's wearing a helmet.
Yeah, keep in mind, this is the middle of the night. We're assuming that she snuck out.
Yes, but I'm proud of her for cranium safety.
Right.
And she just hops in, finds an open door, and starts pilfering around Dee's place. And then, using her flashlight, and then she comes upon a photograph. And it's a very interesting angle. It's Dee, obviously, because he's huge, but he's got a beard and long hair, and he's got his arm around a woman who looks a whole lot like Naomi.
Yeah.
And then off frame, somebody's like, may I have that, please? And then you see what this picture, like this is another one you need to share.
Yeah, this will definitely be on screen.
This is like, when I see this, I'm like, that is Dee. That is strange. Like how, I've never been around somebody that big.
Yeah,
but I've also never been around
huge
anything in the DC
Yeah,
universe.
if you've seen, okay, so imagine just like a typical high school teenage female, like not some giant person, but then imagine her standing by the MCU's portrayal of Thanos, like huge.
Yeah.
But as far as we know, he's just a human guy, but he's big.
Yeah.
Or like Kingpin level big. He would not look unlike Kingpin if Kingpin was kind of all inked up, greasy mechanic. But he's big.
Yeah. And he's like, give me that bag. I only have one. You've come in here. You've offended me. It's like I can almost see him like.
Yeah.
I envision him practically whispering as he says that. I don't know, but he's trying to maintain his calm.
I think it speaks a lot to Naomi, though, because he's saying this. He's like, seriously, that's the only one I have. And she's like, who is she? So Naomi's like not scared. So it speaks a lot to her just bravado in a situation like this. She's not afraid of this towering man.
Yeah. She's like, I'm sorry. You ran away from me. I'm just trying to find this out. And he's like, well, I'm not ready. That was Dee screaming. Yeah. And she's like, well, get ready. Who are you? Who am I? And, and that's just how it ends. But
yeah, it ends again, which is another, like, I'll be honest. When I first ended this, I was like, okay, I'm intrigued because of just the mystery of who is Naomi, who is Dee, who are her parents. Like, why is it significant You know, is it just literally random chance that Superman came through? And it may be still, as we find out later, that it is random chance that he came through while he was fighting Mongol. But like, where are we going in this story? I found myself asking it for this because I did read like an interpretation or like a spoiler free of this is like, you know, is this just a portrayal of what it's like to be a regular person in the DC universe?
Yeah.
And maybe that's it. And maybe it's kind of interesting that she's adopted and doesn't know much about her family and that we find out some stuff, but maybe there's not as many super things happening as possible. But it does leave the question, you know, like he just screamed, "I'm not ready." And she challenged him like, "Well, you need to get ready and tell me right now." And she's alone in a mechanic's garage that she just broke into. And maybe people would argue like he's within the realm of like self-defense. And we also, just judging by his character so far, don't know if he's the safest guy to be around. And then boom, end issue again. So we don't know what's happening for sure. And I think at that point, we're going to take a quick break and we'll jump into issue 3 where we get finally some juicy details.
Juicy deets.
We'll be right back. So just to get this out again, we're at issue 3 now. Issue 1 and 2 we spent some more time on 1, but 2 move really quick. So issue 3, same creative team with the exception the letterer changed again. I have a feeling this, you know, it's comics. I'm not going to pretend to know how the whole world works, but sometimes letterers, I don't think there's as many of those as there are the other creative teams. But the letterer for issue 3 is Wes Abbott. Otherwise, the team is the exact same. But Drew, take us through the beginnings.
Yeah. So we pick up right where we left off. Basically, from the beginning, the very first episode, like where it first started, aren't we only... It hasn't even been 24 hours, has it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, I mean...
There might have been... I mean, unless there was a day in there between the Mongol
Superman
fight and
stuff
him
happening.
cleaning. So anyway, it hasn't been very long since the initial D encounter.
Right. She's still in there.
Yeah. So this is picking right up after she found the picture. It's like, who are you? Who am I? And he was like, I don't really know, Naomi. You know, I don't know who you are. She's like, you're lying. And this whole time, you know, Naomi is pushing. She is just like yelling. And the whole time he's just trying to get away and de-escalate the situation and everything.
Right. You can tell that whatever he knows, he's not being forthright about it. He's trying to like brush off everything that she says.
Yeah. And she's like, he finally gets the picture and he runs off. Well, I'm sure he lumbers off.
Right.
And he just kind of crumples down. And she's like, who is that? Is that are you my father? And is that my biological mother? And Dee's face, it's like, oh my God, is that what you've been thinking this whole time? Like, it just dawns on him. That's why you're being so pushy. And he kind of like, I think he approaches it a little bit different from that point forward. And he's like, you've been watching me. What's going on? You know?
Real quick, hats off to the creative team for that moment. Drew sells it well. Like, you can tell that he has the realization that this kid, while he can't, in his mind, divulge whatever he knows, and we don't know as a reader what he knows, but he realizes that this is a kid who doesn't know who her parents are, and she's maybe at this breaking point, like, of people pushing her off and not letting her know. Like, the art, the words, the lyric, the panel lines, everything just works in a manner that you feel the weight of the scenario. Like, this girl doesn't know who her parents are, and she thinks she might be about to find them, and it might be related to something ridiculous. That's a lot of weight to throw on anybody, you know, but in the context of something crazy, something superhero related, she's just trying to get some answers for once, you know, and he reads that and he catches on, and Drew can carry on. But I just wanted to say that they did a good job in that moment, I think.
Yeah. And he finally just levels like, kid, I'm not your father.
Yeah.
She was not your mother. We're not your parents. In fact, that is impossible. He's like, well, what is it then? You know, why'd you run away? And he's like, I prepared myself for this all these years. I'm sorry. And this was kind of a big leap for me, like from jumping from Naomi putting this together. But she's like, wait, are you even human?
Right.
And this big, you know, his eyes go even wider. Like,
right.
Oh crap, it's happening. I'm gonna have to talk. And he's like, yeah, it was complicated before I came here. everything's different, you know. And then he says the big one. I'm just going to go ahead and read it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's different. The reason to wake up in the morning, even the idea of waking up in the morning, it's all different here. Everything about my place in the multiverse is different now. She's like, multiverse, you know,
Right.
and you know, if you're a comic nerd or if you've watched anything, you've probably seen things about the multiverse. But you know, I don't know how much of it is common knowledge in like the actual like everyday life of humans.
Do they know there's a multiverse?
On Earth One? I don't know.
Yeah, you would think
Or
there's
on
probably
Earth.
lots of reasons why you wouldn't want them to know about it.
But I'm just going to keep reading it because I don't want to mess this up.
It's worth it.
D is like, violence is the only true commerce.
And that's a quote.
Yeah. He was like, I was raised to believe that. I was raised to fight for that idea. As a Thanagarian, I was raised to fight. Do you know, Alex, what a Thanagarian is?
I know more than 0%. I'll say more in a second whenever it gets to a point.
Yeah. I'll let you wonder because
Yeah.
we're going to see a big splash page in just a second that if I'm sure we'll put up on the screen.
Right.
And if you see that, I want to let you put the question out, like watchers, audience,
Right.
viewers, whatever you call it.
Two-man fans.
Two-man fans. Let you think about it for a second before I talk more about it. He's like, so basically he was a soldier. And then, you know, they start, it's almost like there's a movie happening.
Right.
That's creeping in. And there's the page, okay? Whenever we turn to it, this grandiose looking thing. And he was just like, yeah, I was on a specific path. Kayela, I don't know.
Kayela, I think, maybe.
Kayela or something. It's like D is there, but he's got this battle armor on with a red emblem with a black hawk looking thing on his chest. And he's got wings and he's wielding this giant thing. And there's all these other guys that look the same. And I'll go ahead and say it now. They look a whole lot like Hawkman. And that is because I know just enough about Hawkman to be dangerous.
Right.
And I Googled it to try to clear things up, and it didn't really clear anything up. Basically, in some stories, Hawkman, it'll make sense why I'm saying this in a second. In some stories, Hawkman was just a reincarnated Egyptian god.
Okay.
That had like this suit and he could fly with stuff. And in other lore, Hawkman was basically somebody that came from planet Thanagar. And that's like all these guys, they're basically Hawkman, but Hawkman ended up on Earth. And somehow, maybe there was
It's kind of like the
involved.
Nova Corps for Marvel. Like, Nova is super on Earth, but he was just kind of another person and part of the Nova Corps. He kind of has that power.
Yeah. So, yeah, it sounds about the same. There's a couple other things like that that actually will come up in just a second.
Yeah. Well, even Wonder Woman being part of her race, the Amazonas, you know, she's pretty average there, but on Earth, she's a goddess, basically.
But yeah, so he just goes on to say, yeah, we did all these undercover things, you know, like special missions, a lot of discretion. You know, we just went in, pulled people out, fought, and she was by my side the whole time.
Right. So that being, we kind of brushed by, I think, Kayela, which if you're looking at the art, you realize is the person in the picture. Yeah, but now she's kind of in battle armor as well with him.
Yeah. And then he goes on basically saying, and after our last mission went badly, we just ran. And he was like, she said, you ran here? And Dee's like, no, to the gym world. And I had to look that up.
Yeah,
I didn't look it up whenever I read this the first time, but I did this time. The gym world was a strange place that kind of like was run by the Lords of Chaos, and eventually they made like a gateway as magic started disappearing from Earth. They made a gateway for fairies and magic folk to be able to go from Earth to the gym world, and apparently D found the gateway
to Earth. Cool.
And him and Kayela.
Yeah, we're bushing Kayela, I think.
I don't know. It kind of looks like spelling of Kayla.
Right.
So I was trying to make it Kayela, but I don't know how.
Kayela, whatever.
So they go running into the door, the portal. That was the only way out. He was like, because our mission failed. So, and it shows them as they're running up to this swirling portal. Looks a lot like a Stargate, honestly. Some of their pursuers are firing from behind, and
you see these purple lasers shooting behind them.
And Kaela gets shot like through the chest as he is stepping into it, and he gets ripped away.
Yeah, it's kind of a sad scene. Like they stop right before the door, thinking like, okay, we're gonna be free for once.
Yeah,
and they embrace, they kiss, they start to jump through, and then that's when she gets shot right through the heart, and they're reaching for each other, but he was too far down the portal to turn back and grab her.
But I feel like the next page, the entire page, is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
In terms of just non-verbal storytelling.
I agree.
It's this beautiful, like, it shows him falling through this swirling vortex, looks like a double helix type thing. And he looks up, and as he's watching, the light from the portal is focusing down, like getting smaller and smaller until it's just like only shining on his eyeball, and then it's gone entirely, and he just crumbles over, and he's just like, no, and he's just like,
and he realizes he can't go back. He can't get his love. It's a pretty defeating moment, and it's a beautiful panel.
Yeah,
and there's one of those moments where you don't need words.
To
tell the story.
And they just kind of finally, it feels like this is the first moment where Naomi and Dee both kind of, whether or not they totally do, they feel like they understand why the other one has been so the way they were. And they're kind of having this, so the only reason I told you this, Naomi, is I saw you're tortured, I just wanted to clear the air.
Right.
And before they really have a chance to do anything, somebody screams in one of those red bordered speech bubbles that means business. It's like, good Lord. And then Naomi's mom comes running in with a giant baseball bat and just, because picture that. In case you forgot, this was after midnight.
Right.
Naomi's supposed to be in bed, and they knew that she was talking about Dee, so that's probably the first place they went. But they go into this dark garage, and you see this big hulking figure talking to your daughter.
Yeah.
So you're not going to feel too good. And she just starts like just hitting things, and she slaps Dee full in the face.
Yeah. She's not afraid of Dee either. You wonder, like, maybe that's where Naomi got some of her confidence, because her mom is not afraid of this person. And I know a lot of moms who would be the same way. Like, I don't care who you are, how big you are. Yeah. What are you doing in this room with my daughter in the middle of the night?
And the exchange is kind of, Dee's like, well, she came to me. And the mom's like, overpower you, did she? You know, like, she's incredulous.
But important here, you get the gist that Dee and mom know each other.
Yeah, there's a history.
There's a history here. And then suddenly you're a little more at ease as a reader, even though you're like, yeah, that was kind of crazy. Why was this high school girl in this room with men? Even though it was Naomi did break in, and obviously as that story went on with Dee kind of telling his origin story, if you will, like we found out that he's maybe not going to hurt Naomi, but still it's not within the realm of impossibility for a parent to be acting like this.
But then the next part that really tells you, okay, there's something more. She was like, we had a deal. Honor code. Tell me again about your God Almighty honor code. And that's when she slaps, actually. I got ahead of myself. And Naomi sees it and just like, what's going on? And
you can tell she's never seen her mom act that way before.
Yeah. And she's like, if I lose her because of you, and then they just go, and the dad's just kind of leaning up against the car.
Yeah, can we talk about that? Like, despite everything that just happened, they go out, Naomi's walking up towards the car, and she sees her dad just leaning against the car, and he says, Pumpkin, why don't you just listen to your mom right now and get in the car? He's very calm, cool, and collected. And, Dee reaches out from the garage, and he's kind of holding his face, and he's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And the parents, like, glare back at him.
That face.
Yeah, like you think that's enough to make us forgive you right now.
You thought Dee was imposing. Look at the mom's face. And then the next page, I like this one. I mean,
this one was good.
It's more of that same approach from the lunch or the dinner.
Yep.
It's just like, but in a different way. It's like you see the mom like getting angry, and she's like, literally, it looks like she's beating herself in the head with the baseball bat.
Yeah.
And Naomi's just like, what is happening? And she's like, you got to tell me what's going on, and it's like, I know there's a lot. It's asking a lot, but I just need you to settle down. You know?
Yeah.
But Naomi's like, that man just told me he was an alien from another planet, and I haven't seen you raise your hand to anybody. And but they just keep going. And
I think these panels are important to mention real quick, like just to read, like the dad is still somehow, despite everything going on, like being very calm and collected and matter of fact. And he even says, he says right here, he says, between Naomi freaking out and saying, you need to tell me what's going on right now. That guy just told me he was an alien. The dad is just, honey, we really only have one chance to do this right. And we were preparing to do that when you up and snuck out in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I know it's asking a lot, Pumpkin, but I need you to settle down.
Yeah.
And like, despite everything, despite madness, the father is just stop. It's fine. We're about to explain. It's fine. Just stop. Please stop freaking out.
Yeah. And then go into this weird, driving into the woods. I'm just watching this like, okay, something's weird. And essentially they're like, just trust me. This isn't how we wanted to tell you, but I got to show you something.
I don't know if you got the same sense as they were doing this. The narrative in my mind, at least because we don't know what's going on yet, it kind of flipped a little bit. Like now it almost, I think this was purposeful. I think the creators of this book wanted you to feel in this limbo spot right now, some uncertainty about what information Naomi's about to find out, because the art's drawn in the manner where it's very hush-hush. The parents aren't saying anything. And it's kind of like we didn't want to have to do this.
Yeah.
And we don't know where they're taking her. They're going out into the woods in the middle of the night.
See, I guess I never got that.
Well, it's even implied in a little bit, and I won't get too far ahead of myself, but they,
I
even
see it
Naomi
now.
kind of like asks, like,
I see it now. Yeah.
Where are you taking me? You know, kind of thing. And it's not overt, I don't think, but it is, I think, maybe just a little bit. They wanted some people, and they got me with it, like to ask, is she safe right now?
Yeah.
You know, just something I read into anyway.
I think I was just always expecting some manner of what is about to happen.
Right.
So I guess I just didn't see into that. But
I think I got to read maybe what Naomi would have felt right there.
Yeah.
Just uncertainty, because she doesn't. She's at this point mentally where she's just not sure who to trust. I think.
But basically, they're going into the woods. They've got their phone as flashlight, and he just goes on and on talking about like, trust me. I mean, I wish we didn't have to do this. I mean, which that sounds. I mean,
yeah.
honest,
Let me read this
ahead.
just for this point. So where I got this, he says they get out of the car. They're in the middle of the woods. He says, "Do you have your phone?" And she says, "Dad, what the hell?" And he says, "You're gonna need the light." And hey, I know you see it differently, but you jumped the gun on us, and we weren't ready. Well, now it has to be. It has to be now. And I'm purposefully. I'm not stuttering. Like that's kind of how it is. And then he goes on. He says, "This wasn't supposed to. Listen, I love you, kid. I am more than proud of you in anything. Just remember that, okay?" And it sounds almost like a goodbye or something's about to happen and we don't know. And that she's kind of looking back as they're walking to the woods, and her mom's just sitting there in the car, defeated with her head on the dash. We don't know if she's crying. Yeah. And they walk into the woods.
Yeah. And he's just talking like, I would never do anything to hurt you. Do you believe me?
Right.
Do you believe me? You know, I wish I'd do anything to keep things exactly like they are, but things are going to change. And, they go into this cave. But I do want to say, sorry. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if there's something significant about this panel where they walk by this lake or this bay or whatever, and it looks like teeth, giant teeth coming out of it. To my knowledge, I don't remember if we ever get any explanation. Maybe long term down the storyline we might. Mm-hmm. But
and did you also catch the top right of that panel?
Oh, there's
I don't know what it is. It looks like some sort of animal.
Yeah, it looks
like a tiger, a mountain lion.
Mountain lion. I mean, they're in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's significant or they just wanted to acknowledge
red herring.
That there's some animals out there. It's night, but
And then if you zoom in over the cave, they use like a weird cross hatching and stuff, but it almost looks like snake skin.
Right.
I don't know. That I just noticed that because I zoomed in.
Right.
But anyway, they go into this cave. And
they stop there, and she's like, finally, like in the cave, and he's like, I know. And she's like, Dad, you're the one that shows me all these horror movies. And he goes, I know this is weird, but 17 years, kid, I changed all your diapers, and sat with you when you were 6 so I could what? Murder you in a cave? And he's like finally putting it at ease. And that's where I was finally like, okay, he's not going to kill her. But they even kind of winked at it there like, no, just trust me. Like, I have to show you this isn't something that I can just tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, so they go in, and he pulls out this strange-looking orb. Kind of looks like the size of a softball, you know.
But when I saw it, I thought it looked very similar to if Tony Stark had his chess piece in his hand.
Yeah.
Similar size. And
he does something to it, and it starts glowing. And, like, things are running around it, and Naomi's like, Dad? And then you cut to this page, the next page, a gigantic purple and orange spectacle of what is obviously a spaceship.
Yeah.
It's like, Dad, is this the spaceship you found me in?
Right.
And you're just like, okay, so it's just, here's the Superman complex, you know, here we go. She's Superman, you know, she's just like that. But then from off panel, no, baby. And he's just like, it's the one I came in. And that's just, Pumpkin, that's just the beginning. And he's sitting there floating, and he's got, obviously it's a space suit of some sort.
Like his battle armor almost.
It's like a jetpack or something that's making him float, and he's holding that thing. But the best part is his gut.
Yes.
Just like hanging out. So obviously it's
doesn't
like,
quite fit how it used to.
And then she's just sitting there like, oh my gosh, what?
Yeah.
So all this time, you know, they've been hush hush, and Naomi finds out her dad's an alien.
Right.
Or at least, I mean, he says that's what you assume if somebody's coming in on a spaceship that looks nothing like anything on Earth. You're just going to assume he's an alien.
Well, they did this well too. They kind of point at you. The writers, I'm trying to like step back from what's going on here. The writers are aware that you're trying to beat them to the punch constantly, because from book 1 of this series, we're trying to figure out who is Naomi, what is Naomi. This is a DC comic book. Is Naomi a superhero? Do we know anything? And they keep just sleight of hand pushing our eyes somewhere else. So we get to this big reveal, like all this tension building. Who's Dee? Is Dee going to hurt her? Oh, Dee's not going to hurt her. Now her parents are there, and they take her away in the middle of the night. Are her parents going to do something to her? What is going on? And they just lead and lead. Now we're in the cave. Now Dad pushes this thing. Spaceship. So we're like, oh, it's this origin story. And then next panel, as Drew said, it's not her spaceship. So as far as we know, Naomi is still just Naomi.
Yeah.
She's not special. But her dad is. Yeah. And boom, end of issue 3.
Yeah.
And
halfway through the miniseries.
That's as far as we're going to go for today.
Yeah.
Our 2-man fan listeners.
But, you know, just so you know, it does say next for the next issue.
Yeah.
We got the beginning. So we're going to backtrack. We're going to learn some stuff.
Yeah. So Drew, what did you think of these first 3 issues?
I enjoyed them. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's something about the me. Maybe I have the Superman complex, except for the whole adopted thing. I don't know if I ever told you this, but whenever I was growing up, I used to have 7 different Superman shirts. And
you did?
Okay, I did. And
I think we mentioned that in the podcast, maybe.
It might have been like the very first couple episodes where we did the like getting to know each other type thing. But yeah, I was like obsessed with Superman. I read his books. I mean, if you're if you're watching this book right here, The Death of Superman, like I read it and loved it, you know, and just became all about it. And so I was seeing it from her perspective a little bit, thinking, I've been in those shoes. You know, I would love to have come face to face with Superman, get to know about him, and then these weird things happen. So of course, I'm going to try to connect the dots to make it about me. Right.
It was kind of in my opinion, they almost could have done like a mega issue 1, but I get a need to break it up, and the way they did it, you know, we try our best to kind of convey that in this podcast, but it's never going to be the same as you reading it. So it's on DC Universe, and I'm sure you can find a trade at this point, or even some floppies. I mean, I know it sold well, but if you can find a comic book shop by you, it's worth picking up. It's an exciting new character. So, and you don't even know yet. Yeah. I've read a couple issues past this, so I know. You don't know. You don't know. But you want to check this out. I think it's important to know that like they're playing slow ball here, but there's payoff. There's more coming, and I especially at issue 4 was like, ooh, the beginning.
Yeah.
That's saucy. Yeah. So I think more look at this as a prequel, even though it is kind of, it's playing setup. It's worth it. It's kind of the same thing they do with any origin story. You know, like having some context is going to pay off for the juicy stuff while it may not land all its punches right away. But we've got a really compelling story starting here. And honestly, after 3 issues, I would, for better or for worse, there's more questions than there are answers.
Yeah.
We're getting little bits here and there, but we're not there just yet.
I do want to say something. If you happen to be listening to this and you're like, yeah, I want to check that out, or if you're watching this on YouTube and you're like, yeah, I want to learn more about Naomi, I want you to go find a book and read it. I was doing some research before this, and there's a lot of people that apparently don't like this book, and they're very vocal about it. And so, like, if you Google Naomi on YouTube, it might lead you down some paths of people just talking about how bad they hate it. And I don't know, I never got that. I enjoyed it, but it's the same type of hate that you get from any fandom.
Yeah,
like whenever you've devoted a lot of time to something and you're like, I have devoted my life to this, and if you don't do it exactly my way, then you're wrong. You know,
right.
The same way that people talk about, I don't understand football, but the way people talk about football and who needs to be coaching and stuff like that. So,
or the big debate. I mean, I'm a big basketball nut. There's a constant, and there will be people added to this, but there's a constant. Is Michael Jordan the greatest of all time? Yeah. Or is it Kobe Bryant? Or is it LeBron James and he's still here? Yeah. The fact that they're all sitting at a table is something, but I need to go. I've always loved this quote, and it's unfortunate that I can't remember where I heard it first, but there's a quote of somebody saying, if you don't have haters, then you're not doing it right. Yeah. You know, like, so,
but yeah,
if you're expecting this to be Wonder Woman or insert any A-list major superhero, at this point, that's not it. But if everything's trying to be that, then it kind of takes away, you know. Yeah. Not everybody can be the team captain and the ace, but that doesn't mean that it's any less interesting. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I mean, I liked the story. I find it, and we kind of talked about it in a recent episode, how some of these shows and movies that we've really loved have been about heroes that we never would have expected to really enjoy. And that kind of had that going for it. I enjoyed seeing the early bits where Naomi's putting things together. So yeah, it keeps going. You know, there's 3 more issues, and they're worth a read, and they're all on DC Universe right now. Yep. So for a couple bucks, you could get it for a month or get it for a year and read your fill.
Yeah.
So
it's worth it. We highly recommend it.
For real.
And at that point, we're going to jump straight in to our 2-man comic book club trivia.
Lightning round. It's been a while.
Yeah. We didn't come up with a bit.
So it's time for our lightning round trivia, where the questions are faster than my eye was drawn to Naomi's dad's gut.
Oh yeah, that was quick.
It was quick. Yeah.
Immediately, like, it was a serious, cool reveal. I was like, finally some juice, but then I was like, that's what I would look like if I put on that battle armor, spacesuit, whatever he was.
So this one's going to be a quick one. We've got 2 rounds for this.
Yeah,
because
2 rounds.
Unless something happens in the next episode and we realize we need to take a lot longer. But there's only 3 more issues of this miniseries. So it'll be... We'll see who wins. I don't remember when the last one was. I don't remember who's winning. Basically, it comes down to us being really good at asking questions that the other one can't answer.
Yeah. I'll say it's possible. I'll go first.
Okay.
That you can answer this. I'd be very surprised if you did, but also, like, if you just, I don't know. I won't say it's definitely not impossible for you to get.
Okay.
Maybe it is. Okay. Maybe you'll just be so far removed from what I'm talking about. But we came up in the first issue, Superman was fighting Mongol.
Yes.
So I went and did a little research. Nice. Just for the listener, I asked before, like, what's he about? He's kind of an evil Superman type. He's got super strength. He can fly. He can project energy.
Okay.
Your standard superpower type of thing. He's not like he's kind of a jack of all trades, kind of villain. Mongol has a son named Mongol 2.
Okay.
With that knowledge, can you guess the name of his daughter? Think about it.
3.
Think about it, but
okay.
But
I guess
also
it's
know
not
that
Mongol
maybe
3.
it's not the most obvious. But in the vein of, that's not far from father's name. For 1 point.
Oh no. It's not Mongal, is it?
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
It is that.
It is Mongal.
Mongal. Now, I don't know if they just pronounce it the same, but instead of a U, use an L. Mongol, Mongal, I don't know. But yes.
So wait, maybe I misread. Because Mongol, I thought was going in our recent episode where we talked about the DC fandom event. Mm-hmm. I thought Mongol was going to be in Suicide Squad. Maybe it was actually Mongal.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah,
because it was. I thought it was a female version. Character? I thought, unless I'm mixing things, I might be thinking of something else.
We'll have to look.
Yeah.
So it's Mongal. 1 point for you.
That had to have come from like the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, that's people don't quite name characters like that anymore. Thank God.
So I mean, you can give me a point if you want, because my first guess was Mongol 3.
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my question is related to Hawkman, because I mean, there's not a lot to pull from on Naomi because it's brand new. So I'm like, okay, we talked about Hawkman a little bit because of the Thanagar stuff.
I think that's part of the lure of the book. Like, we're in a world where if she's going to be super, she's not yet. Yeah. But there's some super things going on around her.
Because there's some interesting stuff that we will see in a bit. So anyway, I'm just going to go with the basic. And it's tough.
It's fine.
I was going to just ask, do you want to make a guess when Hawkman made his appearance, his first appearance?
I will give a guess.
Tell you what, since this is so crazy, I'm gonna let you make a couple guesses, because there's literally like almost 100 years. So you can guess. I'm gonna let you guess a year or a title of a comic that it might have come in, like a hero line. And if you get either of those, I'll get you a point and we'll tie. If you get both of them, then you'll beat me.
Wait, so I can get a title, just like a...
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to guess just to guess. The year I'm going to guess for Hawkman's debut would be 1951. And for the title, I'm going to guess Detective Comics... also 51.
I'm sorry, no. To both.
Yeah.
He's been around since 1940.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
I was, I should have gone with a gut. I was like, 40, that's way back there. That's like
basically...
He's an OG comic book character.
Superman was like, 38? Batman, 39?
Yeah, Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman were all like within like a year of each other came out, which is bonkers.
So like Hawkman is right there with him.
Very cool.
But, and I guess there's another one who's there, because Hawkman's very first appearance, according to dc.fandom.com.
Those are usually like wikis are pretty accurate.
His first appearance was Flash Comics, number 1.
Oh, Flash number 1.
But I don't know if that's actually Flash number 1 or if Flash Comics. I'm going to click on it and find out. Oh yeah, it is the Flash. Okay. Yeah. So Flash is just as old. I didn't realize that.
Same time as Hawkman. Okay, cool. I learned something today. Awesome. Well, that wraps it up for us, and we'll be back next episode with I'm assuming we can probably hit 4, 5, and 6.
I think so too.
In that next one. Cool. Before we wrap it up, give us some feedback. That makes me think. We have a comment to read.
We do.
We have an Apple Podcast review. So while Drew is pulling that up, I'm just going to give my bit. Please give us some feedback on this. What did you like? What did you not like? Did Did you like the lighting? I don't know. Just give us some feedback with something distracting. How do we sound? How do we look? We would love to adjust some stuff. I think it's a little cluttered right now with everything, but that's going to clean up once we get a better space to do this in. For now, it'll be pretty modular at this point. But tell us what you thought, or just anything at all. What did you think of Naomi? Finally starting to get a little bit of feedback, I think, in the social media, but we want more. We want to talk to you guys. It's a comic book club.
Yeah.
And as much as I like talking to Drew, and I assume he likes talking to me.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. We want to talk to you as well. So please reach out to us. Again, our social media accounts for me is Alex Wayne Miller. Wayne is Wayne. Just like my boy, Bruce Wayne, Batman. And Drew, where can they find you? It's
Twitter, Drew Morris Comp, Instagram, Facebook, Drew Morris Composer, and you can find us as an entity.
Yes.
2-Man Comic Book, the number 2 on Twitter, 2-Man Comic Book Club elsewhere.
Yep.
And I will say, like in regards to the reaching out to us, if you're listening to this on a podcast, go check it out on YouTube.
Yeah.
And then maybe leave a message. Tell us what you thought. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you made it this far, I applaud you, because, YouTube, it's a little bit harder to sit down for an hour and a half or however long this came to be. But we appreciate it, and we'd love for you to reach out to us and tell us what you think. And, because it might be easier to do that than to leave a review.
For sure.
We would love it if you read a review like Rodney Mart did. And I hit the camera again.
It's all right.
I'm sorry. I'm learning. Great show. 5 stars. Thank you. I'm brand new to the comic book culture. You guys make it easy to follow along, and I never feel lost. You guys should do another time travel episode. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's
said Drew's safety word.
As I'm fond of saying, time travel is one of my hobbies. So, and I just watched the new Bill and Ted Face the Music, Bill and Ted 3. I binged the first 2. I watched Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure, then Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and then Bill and Ted Face the Music. And I still, after watching it, in our time travel episode, I made a comment that there are certain moments in Bill and Ted, you have to ignore other parts, but there are certain moments that I feel like are some of the truest representation of what time travel would be like if it could be achieved. And I still stand by that.
Oh, well, first off, thanks to Rodney. It's one of my good friends for leaving the review. I didn't twist his arm or say anything. He just listened, he liked it, and he left a review. So maybe at the bequest of Rodney, we'll do some Bill and Ted, aka
that'd be fun.
Time travel fun, one of the coming episodes. So if you would like to get a shout out and have your comment read, Apple Podcasts, or I guess now if you want to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel that you're watching this on, that would also help us. Let us know where you're from, what you liked. If you leave 5-star or a good review, we'll read it on the show live. And another thing you can do is just tell somebody about us.
Yeah,
be like, hey, I like this. That's a huge thing. So help us share our craft so we can keep doing this, because we do it because we love it and we want to share it with you. So that's all I got. You got anything else?
Nope.
Cool. We'll see you guys next time.
Read Naomi.
Bye.